Hello, welcome back to the reading of the poem of the Man God, written by Maria Valtorta, Volume 1, Chapter 35, Part 2, The Flight into Egypt. Jesus says, and also this series of visions ends thus. With the permission of exacting doctors, we have been showing you the scenes which preceded, accompanied, and followed my coming. And we did so not for their own sake, as they are well known, although they have been distorted by elements superimposed throughout centuries, always as a consequence of the mentality of men, who in order to give greater praise to God, and are therefore forgiven, make unreal what would be so lovely to leave real. Such way of seeing things in their reality does not diminish my humanity or Mary's. Neither does it offend my divinity, or the majesty of the Father, or the love of the most holy Trinity. On the contrary, the merits of my mother and my perfect humility shine brightly, and so does the omnipotent kindness of the eternal Lord. But we have shown you these scenes in order to be able to apply to you and to other people the supernatural meaning deriving from them, and give it to you as a rule of life. The Decalogue is the law, and my gospel is the doctrine that makes the law clearer for you and more loving to follow. The law and my doctrine would be sufficient to make saints of men. But you are so hampered by your humanity. It really overwhelms your souls too much that you cannot follow my ways, and you fall. Or you stop, disheartened. You go on saying to yourselves and to those who would like to assist you, quoting the examples of the Gospels for you. But Jesus, but Mary, but Joseph, and so on for all the saints, were not like us. They were strong. They were immediately comforted in their sorrow. Also in the little sorrow which they experienced, they did not feel passions. They were already beings out of this world. That little sorrow. They did not feel passions. Sorrow has been our faithful friend, and it had all the most varied forms and names. Passions, do not use a word wrongly by calling passions the vices which mislead you. Be sincere and call them vices, and capital ones in addition. It is not true that we did not know them. We had eyes to see and ears to hear, and Satan caused those vices to dance in front of us and around us, showing them to us with their heap of filth in action, or tempting us with his insinuations. But since we firmly wanted to please God, his filth and insinuations, instead of achieving the purpose intended by Satan, obtained the very opposite. And the more he worked, the more we took shelter in the light of God, disgusted as we were with the muddy darkness which he showed to the eyes of our bodies and of our souls. But we did not ignore in our hearts passions in their philosophical setting. We loved our country, and in our country we loved our little Nazareth above every other town in Palestine. We were fond of our house, of our relatives and friends. Why should we not? We did not become slaves to our feelings because nothing is to be our master except God, but our feelings were our good companions. My mother uttered a cry of joy. After about 4 years, she went back to Nazareth and entered her house and kissed the walls where her yes had opened her bosom to receive the Son of God. Joseph joyfully greeted his relatives and his little nephews, who had grown in numbers and in years, and he rejoiced when he saw that his fellow citizens remembered him, and they sought him because of his ability. I myself appreciated friendship, and because of Judas's betrayal, I suffered as for a moral crucifixion. And why not? Neither my mother nor Joseph ever placed more love for their home or their relatives before the will of God. And I never spared a word, if it was to be said, capable of drawing upon me the hatred of the Jews and the animosity of Judas. I knew, and I could have brought it about, that some money would be sufficient to subject him to me, not to me a redeemer, to me a rich man. I had multiplied the loaves of bread, and if I wanted, I could multiply also money. But I did not come to obtain human satisfactions to anybody, least of all to the ones I had called. I had preached sacrifice, detachment, a pure life, humble positions. What kind of a master would I have been, and what just man, if I had given money to one of them for his mental and physical satisfaction, only because that was the means to keep him? Those who make themselves small are great in my kingdom. Those who wish to be great in the eyes of the world are not suitable to reign in my kingdom. They are straw for the beds of the demons, because the greatness of the world is the antithesis of the law of God. The world calls great those who, by means which almost always are illicit, know how to get the best positions, and to do so they use their neighbor as a stool on which they then climb, crushing him. The world calls great those who know how to kill in order to reign, and they kill materially or morally, and they usurp positions in countries and fatten themselves, bleeding both individuals and communities. The world often calls great criminals. No, greatness is not to be found in criminality. It is in goodness, in honesty, in love, in justice. You can see which poisonous fruit your great ones offer you, fruit which they have picked in the wicked devilish garden inside them. I only wish to speak about the last vision and omit the rest, because in any case it is useless, as the world does not want to hear the truth concerning it. The last vision clarifies a detail quoted twice in the Gospel by Matthew, a sentence which is repeated twice. Get up, take the child and his mother with you, and escape into Egypt. Get up, take the child and his mother with you, and go back to the land of Israel. And you saw that Mary was by herself in her room with the child. Mary's virginity after her delivery and Joseph's chastity have been strongly denied by those who, being putrid mud themselves, are not prepared to admit that one like them can be as pure and clear as light. They are wretched people whose souls are so corrupted and their minds so prostituted to the flesh that they are incapable of thinking that one like them can respect a woman seeing in her not her flesh but her soul. Neither can they elevate themselves to live in a supernatural atmosphere, craving not for what is flesh, but only for what is God. Well, I wish to tell those deniers of the most beautiful things, those worms incapable of becoming butterflies, those reptiles covered with the slaver of their own lewdness, incapable of understanding the beauty of a lily. I wish to tell them that Mary was and remained a virgin, and that only her soul was married to Joseph, exactly as her spirit was united only to the Spirit of God, by whose deed she conceived her only Son. I, Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of the Father and of Mary. This is not a tradition embellished afterwards, out of loving respect for the Blessed Virgin, who was my mother. It is the truth, and has been known since early times. Matthew was not born after centuries. He was a contemporary of Mary. Matthew was not a poor ignorant man brought up in a forest and likely to believe any idle story. He was a clerk in the taxation office, as you would say nowadays. He was an excise man, as we said then. He would see, hear, understand, and tell the truth from the false. Matthew did not hear things reported by third parties. He heard them directly from Mary's lips, to whom he applied for information, prompted by his love for his master and for the truth. I do not believe that those repudiators of Mary's inviolability will dare think that she may have lied. My own relatives could have given her the lie. Had there been other children, James, Judas, Simon, and Joseph were disciples together with Matthew. Therefore, Matthew could have easily compared their versions, had there been more than one account. But Matthew does not say, "Get up and take your wife." He says, take his mother. Before he says, a virgin betrothed to Joseph, Joseph her spouse. Neither of those repudiators of purity should tell me that it was a way of speaking particular to the Jews, as if to say wife was a disgrace. No deniers of purity. At the very beginning of the Bible we read, and he will join himself to his wife. She is called companion up to the moment of the sensual consummation of the marriage, and afterwards she is called wife. In various circumstances and in different chapters, and these are the expressions referred to the wives of the sons of Adam. And so Sarah is called the wife of Abraham. Sarah, your wife. And take your wife and your 2 daughters, is said of Lot. And in the book of Ruth it is written, the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon. And in the first book of the Kings it is said, Elkanah had 2 wives. And further on, Elkanah then had intercourse with his wife Hannah. And again, Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife. And again, in the book of the Kings, it is said, Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, became the wife of David and bore him a son. And what do you read in the Blue Book of Tobias? What the church sings to you at your wedding to advise you to be holy in your marriage. You read, now when Tobias arrived with his wife and his son, and again, Tobias succeeded in escaping with his son and with his wife. And in the Gospels, that is in times contemporary with Christ, when therefore they wrote in a modern style of language, as compared to the ancient kind, and therefore no error of transcription could be suspected. It said, and just, by Matthew in chapter 22, and the first, after marrying his wife, died and left his wife to his brother. And Mark at chapter 10, the man who divorces his wife, and Luke called Elizabeth the wife of Zacharias for 4 times running. And in the 8th chapter of his gospel, he says Joanna, the wife of Chuza. As you can see, this name was not a word banished by those who walked in the ways of the Lord. It was not an impure word, not worthy of being uttered, and least of all written when there was a mention of God and of his wonderful work. And the angel saying, the child and his mother proves to you that Mary was his real mother. But she was not a wife of Joseph. She remained forever the virgin betrothed to Joseph. And this is the last teaching of the vision, and it is a halo which shines on the heads of Mary and Joseph, the inviolate virgin, the just and chaste man, the 2 lilies amongst whom I grew up, receiving only the perfume of purity. I could speak to you, little John, about Mary's grief at being torn away from her house and her fatherland, but there is no need for words. You understand, and you die of grief. Give me your sorrow. That is all I want. It is greater than anything else you could give me. It is Friday today. Mary, think of my grief and of my mother's on Golgotha in order to be able to bear your cross. Our peace and love remain with you. This has been a reading from the poem of the Man God, written by Maria Valtorta, Volume 1, Chapter 35, Part 2, The Flight into Egypt. Thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow. May God bless you, and may peace be with you.